Hello families, this is a video meant to explain my scope and sequence, or the order and when I teach my different Spanish language skills in my classroom. This is a voiceover, so I might be a little bit out of sync with what my hands are doing. That is normal. If you'd like to hear the original, the Spanish version does have my original capture. So first, I work on three zones. First, las vocales, the Spanish vowels, a, e, I, o, u. Second, I work on all the other initial sounds of Spanish language, so that would be through the estrellitas chant, oso, oso, all the way through. And then third would be blending syllables, and those kind of go, as soon as you have one, we move on to the next. And syllables I'll refer to as sílabas in various reports that you get from me. Now, one important thing to know about Spanish's writing system is that it's a transparent writing system. So when you see the vowel letter A, it's not going to make three or two or so different sounds as it does in English. And the combinations of vowels are a bit more transparent. Also, most letters say just one sound, or so a, e, I, o, u. Those are the vowels. They are going to be transparent every time. A, I, o, and u. Now that's the very first thing that we learn. It is the most important for Spanish literacy, because really from there you can start blending sounds together a lot faster than we tend to in English. And one thing to remember is that a, o, and u, those are pretty much the most transparent and the easiest for our learners. In a bilingual English-Spanish program, these two are trickier. Está la I, that's E, even though in English it's I, right? But it's E in Spanish. And that can be tricky because the Spanish letter name for E is there. Here I'm drawing a little iman because that's one of my things I use. This other letter is la E, and it has E from español, from elefante, E. So sometimes students will get confused between A and la E, I and la I. That's one thing that takes a bit of practice, and it's normal for them to need a reminder. All right, all done with las vocales. Now for the initial sounds. We have our estrellitas initial sounds chant. So you'll see that this is pretty much how the scope goes for my class. It's arranged in cells. So the first five, it goes from top to bottom and left to right. So O followed by A, followed by I, all the way to P, S, all that way down. Here we have our letter sounds. The first cell is the las vocales. That's the very first most important one. And you'll see that little break before we get to the second part, which is the first set of consonants. It goes in frequency order. So you're going to see the letter M and the sound in your early emergent Spanish reading an awful lot. Towards the end, where there's W or K, you could pretty much go your whole life reading Spanish and you could memorize the words with W or K because it's just not a common letter in any fashion. It's used for borrows. So we learn the first chunk, then the second chunk, and we really want to practice them to mastery in those chunks. So M, P, S, L, those are very important. T, D, R, hard C, soft C, K, and S. Those are the next set. And that's the way that I focus the whole way through. So when you're writing words, map, with that first cell only, you could write words such as the ones I'm writing. Mapa, los, las, el, la. I don't know where else I went with this. Let's see. Papa. So you can read a lot of emergent texts with just that first column of words. And then they become less and less common in written Spanish. Now, it does also have, oh, never mind. Oh, yeah, so here's the routine. We go oso, oso, o. And for every object, we're going to name the sounds. After they've memorized it with the pictures of the objects, then it's worth it to practice with just the lowercase letters. Here's a couple text features that are useful in this set. So you can see, I'm not sure I've given this out to you, but it's a very easy one to find. Those letters down there say the same sound in most dialects of Spanish, outside of maybe Spain. So for the S, the C, and the Z, all three say the same sound. Similarly, you'll see on the B that the V says the same sound in Spanish, or that for the la jota, the la G suave, the soft G, says the same sound as the Spanish J. Um, Similarly, yeah, you'll see here that Y and sorry, the Y and the ella say the same thing, and that's a pretty helpful thing. If you would like a copy of that, just email me and I'll send you on a digital copy of it. I included the Estrellitas chant in another form that I'll show you in a little bit when we get to Silabas to save paper. But if you would like this one, feel free to send me an email and I'll send it along, or just Google Estrellitas initial sounds. Once they've got about 18 to 20 of those initial sounds, it's a very good time to start with the sílabas. Here's the one I sent home to you. So this one goes left to right, oso, avión. It still goes in the same order of what the objects are called. But what I love about this one is that it both explains my pacing, because it just goes from left to right, column by, or row by row, rather. So you can do conejo, conejo, cepillo, cepillo, all the way through, each of them. Then once the student is ready and they have, critical mass of the initial sounds, not necessarily every sound memorized, they'll read ma, me, mi, mo, mu. They practice those syllables in context, or out of context, rather. Sa, se, si, so, su, la, le, li, lo, lu. So, and getting those syllables is very important. I believe I explained that a little bit more in a moment. So here in the routine, we'll say mano, mano, trace the M to start off, then the syllable ma, me, mi, mo, mu. Bes, bes, p, p, p. Maybe even trace it with the finger. Ba, be, bi, bo, bu. And you'll go all the way through on that. I like that some of the ones that don't say the sound, like ta, ke, are expressed differently. So you can see where the QU is used, or where the soft G and hard G are used in context. So I find that pretty useful. As well, in the same notebook, I have the syllables as we've used them, right? So we have one object for each of them. Ma, mano, me, mesa, miton, mono, all the way through. And part of the vehicle of this is to be able to practice with automaticity those syllables as we run into them, and also so you know how far we've gotten. So I'm hoping that our students don't color too far ahead, but rather that as far as we've colored is as far as I would like you to review and practice, unless you know your student is ready to do every syllable. For some of them, like sa, it doesn't say sa really anywhere in Spanish. So if you see no object, it's just probably not a very key syllable to learn, because some of those letters X is less predictable. Anyway, the earlier pack is the most important for starting to read in Spanish. Let's see. Okay. So now we're going to get into the discussion of how sight words and letter by letter spelling are different in English and Spanish. So here I'll do an emergent reader text. Oh yes, so in words, a lot of things have consonant, vowel, consonant. Words like pet or sat, right? And then in Spanish, they tend to be multisyllabic words where you read syllable by syllable. So consonant, vowel, something like mapa, tomate, right? Where it's more syllables in a row. I believe I provide an example here. Oh yes, this is from when I was a reading tutor. We would read in English, the cat sat on the mat. Now, the is a sight word. You should just memorize. You could spend time thinking about and then being the minimal form, but not really. On, that's another common sight word, so it's worth memorizing in English. The, and then these other ones are CVC words. So cat, k, at. It has those three sounds: consonant, vowel, consonant. So I did that little like blending symbol. That's what it means to blend. So when you're learning to read in English, really getting those sight words started is the first thing to do. And then we could learn like a word family. So cat, sat, mat, those all rhyme. And you'll see that I think a little bit before December's over, maybe in early January, Mrs. Ball will be getting to a lot of word families. For me, the syllables are the equivalent of that. So you can see that if I translate the same sentence, which we read this book in both languages when I was a tutor. El gato se sentó. I think, let's see what I wrote. Se sentó en el, and then, oh, we want an easy translation for Matt? Nope, el tapete. So that word can look a lot longer. Now, as far as sight words where you just need to memorize them, like with that glasses icon like I did, there isn't one there. There's a couple syllables that are a little bit trickier, but here, if we're trying to read it, well, I can see there, gato, I can use those sounds in a more transparent system to write it. So, el gato se sentó en el tapete. Learning to read syllable by syllable helps you to attack longer words that you may not run into in early literacy English, in emergent sort of books. Now, for sentó, that might be a little bit trickier because it is a closed syllable. So sen is a trickier syllable to read than se. So for those words, sometimes we provide help. Also in first grade, they really focus a lot on getting all the closed syllables complete as well in our program. So, you know, as you're blending the different words, you'll get it from rhyme, you'll get it from word families in English, and then in Spanish, putting the syllables together is a lot more of how I structure this basic setup. So in English, there are more sight words. I'm kind of putting it on that side of the column. And there are more word families and more, how do I put it? More sight words and word families, basically. And then in Spanish, there's more of an emphasis on and visually memorizing. Yeah, that's what the sight words are for when we say it, or high frequency words you'll see as well. In Spanish, what are the, in a more transparent system, then being able to read it and focusing on what the meaning is going to be a bigger component there. So to summarize, I'd like to review that we use our vocales, 5 single vocales, then the initial sounds, then the sílabas. Sight words come in later for me because it's a district-wide assessment. But if you see in our data and in our discussions during conferences and during other sharings that your student is still working on vowels, oh yes, that is twice a day, exposure, repetition, we want to get it there. Initial sounds, similarly. And then with syllables, that's going to be a longer part of our voyage. So I hope you can use this pacing tool that I sent out to color the ones that our student knows, to practice those routines. I kind of made it so that we would have something to do away from computers sometimes, because that paper and pencil time and that not always videos can be really helpful. If you would benefit from videos, check out my YouTube. It's there. Thanks so much, families. I'm really happy to have you in our program, and if I can help you with reading in Spanish, please let me know. Thank you. Bye-bye.